welcome to this live panel discussion. We're really excited to be able to present, to have this session with, be recording this session with you today. Today, we are speaking on topics around making AI work, the data readiness playbook. We have an excellent panel today, and we look forward to sharing some more details with you very shortly. It's Halloween 2025, and hopefully the topics that we share today aren't too spooky for anyone, but there are some things that we do need to take care of, and we'll, as we go through the presentation today, we'll cover a number of topics that'll be especially relevant. So in terms of the panel, myself, my name is Adam Adil. I work together with Sahil Naqvi at a company called Ausforming, and Ausforming's mission is to support our clients in Australia and New Zealand gain access to some of the greatest minds and technology providers who exist from a global context. So we operate as a connector between our client base, who are generally in businesses and organisations, government, etc., throughout Australia and New Zealand, and we provide those connections to thought leaders, technology providers, systems implementers, and software developers globally. We're joined also by Richard Henry from Bluestonex. Bluestonex is one of the leading SAP app houses based in the UK. Working across multiple geographies and really focusing in on human-centered design, making applications work and making SAP running businesses get the most out of, or allowing them to get the most out of, the technology investments that they have, but also extending those to make sure that they meet the needs of their specific industries. And Bluestonex has a rich history in working in the data and analytics space and throughout with the SAP Business Technology Platform. We're also joined by a very, very special guest, Dr. Jonathan Reichenthal. And I was honoured to have Jonathan joining us for this discussion, and very much looking forward to his insights. Dr. Jonathan is a multiple award-winning technology leader and has worked both in the private and public sectors. He's been a senior engineering manager, a director of technology innovation, and has served as the chief information officer at both O'Reilly Media and the city of Palo Alto, California. Dr. Jonathan has recently founded his own venture, Human Future, and also creates online content for LinkedIn Learning. He has a regular column in Forbes and has written many books, including Smart Cities for Dummies, Exploring Smart Cities Activity Book, as well as a cryptocurrency quick start guide, and this title here, Data Governance for Dummies, this series as well. So certainly an expert in this field, and then certainly looking forward to gaining insights from Jonathan and Richard. So onto the content today. So today's topics that we'll be covering is the importance of data. Why is it so important? The data strategy that people can employ for AI readiness, common challenges that organizations face, and also real data readiness and AI stories. So we'll get right into the content. Maybe Jonathan, to get us started, are you able to maybe elaborate as to why data is so important in the context of AI?
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you, Adam, very much for the lovely introduction. It's great to be here. And I'm coming to you from San Francisco, actually just south of the city. I'm here in Silicon Valley, just in Northern California. It's the late evening, but thrilled to be here. Always a good time to speak about data, and always terrific time to talk about the artificial intelligence phenomena we're all experiencing right now. It's very, very interesting. AI, although most people were first exposed to it in November of 2022, when just about everybody, were wowed by what a prompt could do. I think what was missed in the general public was that AI has been around for actually many decades, since the late 1950s. And it's only now that it's producing this remarkable capability. We've had AI in our lives, whether it's, for fraud detection for credit cards or for using our smartphones or for GPS, for all those years. Um, the technology behind, the most exciting part of AI today, the generative AI, has also been around for more years than, much more prior to October of or November of 2022. But there were two things that were missing from making it happen. The science with with the transformer technology, which kind of basically is able to analyze a prompt and give us the great answers that we get most of the time. That existed, the algorithms existed, but there wasn't sufficient processing power. The chips weren't good enough, and there wasn't enough data, right? So we actually had to have a few more things catch up, and that's often the case with a lot of technology. Is it doesn't all happen at once, but when it does come together, when the various pieces meet the prerequisite or the requisite maturity, then you have incredible things. Then the magic happens, and so really we can look to the availability of big data, of masses of volumes of data, as one of the central reasons why generative AI and large language models emerge in a practical way by November of 2022. It also, of course, was that one company, OpenAI, were ready to sort of take the leap. Google had been on standby, but OpenAI were smaller and they were willing to take their bigger risk, and they moved forward. So we can see that data really is at the core of the AI phenomenon today. You've got excellent algorithms. You have the GPUs, the chips now. We have cloud computing, and in total, we're able to do great things. Now, as organizations embrace AI, and they are, this is amazing. It took 10 years for a third of enterprises to adopt cloud computing. 10 years. It's taken 1 year for a third of enterprises to adopt some form of AI. So the acceleration here has been really unprecedented. And in terms of basically staff using some tool for AI, it's the numbers for most enterprises, across industries, across geographies, is up in the 80 to 90 percentile. So it's almost everybody using it. Getting different results, of course, a lot of experimentation, lots of different ways of using it, both behind the scenes, for back office, and also trying to implement it within their business or customer focusing services. But as we mature, and again, let's remind ourselves we're only 3 years into this, and we want to start to use our own data to be able to produce results. Let's say very, very focused, very specific models, language models for being able to query and create outputs. We want to use our own data, and so our data has to be prepared. Our enterprise data has to be ready for that. It has to be good quality. You still have the old saying, bad data in, bad data out. That also applies to AI. So as more and more companies are starting to use their own data, perhaps they're creating small language models that are very specific, or they're mixing public with private data. They need to recognize that the better quality the data is, the more available it is, the better the results are going to be. Now, data has been increasing in its importance anyway, but AI just puts the accelerator on it. Companies need to increase their priority around it, increase the investment, increase the talent that is applied to it. In some ways, data is often considered a commodity. Everybody has access to a lot of the same data, and it comes down to how you use it and the strategy around it. So as our conversation develops today, I'll sort of bring my initial thoughts here to close. I really want to just remind us that data is at the heart of the future of AI. Is the reason why we have generative AI today in the state it is. And if organizations are really going to take advantage and see, glean the benefits, they're going to have to get their data house in order, and that's not a trivial thing. That's a real
Mhm.
important business focus for every enterprise.
Well, I think it's really important, as you mentioned, is that a lot of the models are trained on, what publicly available data, but a lot of organizations are looking for, how can I apply similar methodologies, similar technologies to the data that's actually inside my organization,
Right.
but merge that in some way with data that's external. Um, Richard, did you want to maybe just give us a little bit more of a view? And I know we've created, you generously gave us a little bit of a visual here on the slide. Just maybe talk us through that.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks very much for the warm introduction. And Jonathan, I loved some of the things that you said there as well. I echo it wholeheartedly. I was at a recent event a couple of weeks ago, a data community forum of senior kind of leaders in this space, running large enterprises or certainly managing those data areas. I think what was quite a highlight was AI is definitely, as Jonathan says, it's at the tip of everybody's tongue. It's almost a necessary part of people's business strategies kind of going forward. However, we have this reality check at the moment, which says that the data that we are using for the AI output, typically within many organizations, is not necessarily fit for the purpose that we need to have an accelerated journey of AI or to have a really valuable AI journey going forward. And so there's this gap in between this ungoverned data and being AI ready. Um, and the discussion point was very much around setting a solid foundation in which to build your AI launching kind of companies kind of from. And the bit that sits in the middle, Jonathan, you mentioned one already, was data quality, but also that data governance as well. So the access to certain information, maybe not necessarily all information under all circumstances, who has access to certain information as well. And then when it comes to data quality, ensuring that you're collecting the data at the right time, it's available real time, hopefully, where needed, but you're collecting the right data points. So you will have necessary information, but also for your AI solutions, you may want certain metadata to be collected as well. And certainly, we operate with a variety of different companies, from government agencies to large scale manufacturing companies. And they are now starting to think about, well, what additional information will then support my AI solutions as we kind of move forward. That's not traditional data that I need within my process, but it may be critical metadata that I then need to either categorize, filter, whatever it may be. At the end of the day, as Jonathan says, the whole concept of agentic AI is a follow-on from traditional AI solutions like automation, data mining, all of these types of things. And that wholly relied on the access of information and data. So, it's, I suppose, not a surprise that we need these same metrics and the same foundation to really go forward. However, it's, we're 3 years in, but things are changing rapidly. And so people are having to adapt at a rapid pace moving forward. But yeah, maybe that sets a bit of a scene. But yeah, certainly this gap of data governance, data quality is becoming a bit of a reality for many companies that they've got some work to do.
Yeah. Excellent, excellent. And look, we see, a lot of the tech platforms, be it SAP, Microsoft, in releasing technologies in this space. I guess the one of the one of the things that really sort of strikes me is how do we make sure that if the data we're using is ready. Like what we mentioned data governance, data quality. We touched on access and ensuring that data is accessible. But I've had personal experiences where I've uploaded a few documents, very large documents, and said, compare these two documents, right? And the results that I've gotten back out of the large language model has been pretty much a web search on the headlines. So they haven't actually, the AI model has probably taken a lazy approach of just finding something on the web that looks kind of right. Now that's just me comparing a few documents, but like in a business context, we're actually relying on real data when you're actually looking at real information from your plant. How can you, or your operations, not your plant? How can you make sure that data is trusted and that you're actually able to use it and use these technologies effectively? Maybe Jonathan, did you want to? I'm sure you've got plenty of experience and plenty of examples which are probably more relevant. So
No, that was good. You set that up very well. I think that's really important. Um, Look, I think what I've experienced working with a lot of leaders around the world over the last year or so, particularly, is they have never thought about data as one of their, if not their most important asset beyond people. And I think it's time to do that. It's time to recognize that data is the new oil. The data is powering the 21st century economy, and you've got to treat it in that way. Um, what organizations need to do is really understand, is their data ready for the things they want to do. It goes way beyond just AI. I mean, are you using data to understand your customers, to understand the marketplace, to innovate, right? To grow your business? Are your data sets good quality? I mean, this is this is what we've mentioned a few times. At the heart, I think, of this topic is quality, is data quality. And what do I even mean by that, or what do we mean by that? It means, are your data sets complete? Are they current? Do they have gaps? Are there errors? Are there duplicates? These are things you have to really pay attention to when you've made this asset, and you recognize it as being the most very important to the success of your business. So assessing the quality of your data sets, identifying what your primary, your of course your master data sets are, but then beyond that, what other data sets are really important to you, and putting focus on those. Having data owners. I think this is something also which I always have a funny experience. I'll be with a C-suite group or something, and I'll say, do all your important data sets have data owners? And first of all, some people will not really know what I mean by that. And then others will know, but they're like embarrassed because they don't have someone assigned to wake up every day and sort of worry about a data set. I think that's really key. And then if I could just go back to data governance, because clearly that's, first of all, my book is about, but it's also the missing piece for a lot of organizations in being successful here. If you kind of evaluate the average enterprise, they do data management fine, right? They have the tools, for data. They back it up. They try to make it accessible. It integrates across systems. Generally, there's a data management, some sort of posture. Data strategy is usually not far behind. The average enterprise kind of knows that we want to achieve the following things, and here's kind of data we need. Data analytics is much better appreciated today. So that's 3 of the 4 legs. You could give those probably reasonably good grades. The 4th area, though, data governance, we don't give that a good grade today. Part of it is people don't understand it. They don't know what that is, because the other 3 were easy or easier, whereas data governance is something that perhaps is not that familiar. And it has to do with, having the policies, procedures, the oversight, the rules to make data, be valuable, and be to be able to leverage the value of data, right? That's really what that's about. And then the other half of the other side of that coin is ensuring that you're managing the risk of data. The risk being the sort of the defensive component of data. We call it defensive data, and the flip side being offensive, which is how to make it actually work for you. Bringing it back to AI, good, solid, implemented data governance, processes, procedures, policies, standards, combined with some good tool sets, because you're going to have to invest here, and good talent, that will set you up really well for success in moving forward with your AI efforts in your organization.
Thanks, Jonathan. That's really, really valuable insight, and thank you for unpacking the topic of data governance even further for us. Richard, you've worked with multiple clients across around the world. What have you seen in terms of, I guess, people's readiness from an AI perspective in organisations that you've worked with, or Bluestonex has worked with?
Yeah, certainly, from a high summary point of view, companies are not ready. It's very rare that I will see a company where they have all of the, I suppose, certainly the recommended boxes checked off at this moment in time. There's certainly some that are more mature. I think we touched just briefly on a couple of areas there, but you've got this concept of data governance, but you also have this AI governance as organizations kind of grow, and they should almost kind of lock in very much with each other. Having a solid foundation of good quality data, maybe a tool set in order to manage the aspect of collection and management of that data is certainly recommended. But then it comes down to this company both structure, as Jonathan's mentioned, having the right people of owners of data sets, but also this company culture of, okay, governance and strategy. And I don't think I've met many companies that have got a mature head on all of those areas at this stage. It will come, and I'm certain that because of the drive for AI within companies, it will come quite quick for some. For other companies, if the culture is not there to start with, they will struggle to adopt this in an efficient manner. So they may have much longer journeys. They may still be talking about this very subject in another 2 years. They may trial AI solutions, but they may not necessarily get a solid output at kind of the end of that. One of the things, just on kind of data governance and just kind of knowing where the data kind of comes from, just to kind of put a bit of a reality check on. When some of these companies are using it, you have your outsourced kind of data structures that you're going out to the World Wide Web, which I think most of us have probably dabbled in, whether it be in our personal lives or just to help us kind of write an email or whatever it may be. But when you're talking about an enterprise level, you really want to be looking at, well, my data internally within this box, maybe combined with external kind of parameters as well. But where companies have relied on those external parameters, which you have no control necessarily of, you have instances like just last month, I'm trying to remember what month we're in, we're still in October. So just last month, Google changed the parameters of their search results, and automatically the results in which your LLMs were responding on just changed overnight. So the same cannot happen within your enterprise data. And this is where this whole structured element, having good control measures and a strategy and a governing body within it, that's where it kind of comes home is, you can't just have your enterprise data and the access to that data just fundamentally changing how your LLMs are accessing it overnight, like we experienced, because the results just go from one thing to another and almost breaks very, very quickly. And that's a recent example of that just happening, and it affected everybody. So yeah, just to kind of bring some context into it.
Could I add?
Of
Yeah,
course.
please, Jonathan.
I wanted to even pick up on something that Richard said that's so important. In addition to what he said, which I think was some really good insights there, he mentioned data culture, and I feel sort of remiss for not bringing it up myself earlier, but I'm glad you did, Richard. I mean, this is the goal. I think this is the goal now in the first half of the 21st century. If you're running an existing enterprise, you're trying to grow it, and you want to succeed here, not just in AI, but in embracing technology and really embracing success in this new economy, you've got to develop and figure out what a data culture means to you. You can't just say tomorrow we're going to be a data culture. We understand culture takes many forms. It originates in many different ways. But you certainly, as a leadership team, need to exhibit the behaviors you want your business and your staff to reflect. And making data and data-driven decision making very central to running of the business. But I did want to make sort of one specific actionable item here that because it's such a large topic, I want to keep it constrained. Is this notion of data literacy as it leads to data culture? One of the things I found in my own career, having managed a lot of technology people over many, many decades, or many years, over several decades, not that long, is we sometimes ask our staff to do things and expect things from our staff, but we haven't helped them be successful. We haven't trained them. We haven't given them all the tools and opportunity to be successful. And that's our fault as leaders. But now we have a chance. If we agree that this is important, and I hope people do, then data literacy in your staff across the board it needs to be something that you address. That means training. When we say data literacy, can people access, use, manage, do all the things you have to do around data to be successful with it? Can you measure that? And can people say, yes, I understand how to use a spreadsheet or they use that database or use Tableau, or use the analytics software that I need to use to be successful. So if I could just end my point here with just a data point, which is when you ask leaders across all types of organizations what kind of business they want to create, the number is interesting. 83% say they want to be a data-driven business. That's the sort of number you get, regardless of industry. And data-driven business really being you want to create a data culture that enables success. But then you ask a follow-up question, which is even more enlightening, is what percentage are successful? How many are actually meeting that? The number is more like 30%. So there's a huge gap between the aspiration and where we're at. And the advice I think that all of us are trying to give today and will going forward is let's figure out how to get rid of that gap and get everybody up to the 80, 90 percentile and be successful with AI, with data in this new economy.
Excellent. And in terms of aligning that data strategy with the business goals, I mean, you the stats you shared give an insight. I'm guessing that strategy doesn't just happen. It doesn't organically grow in an organization from bottom up. Is there a correlation there between those organizations that are employing a data-driven strategy and the actual investments they're making, be it people, be it technologies, or integrations, or whatever it is? I'm interested, Jonathan, to hear from those who've been successful and what distinguishes them in terms of their strategy and how they're actually executing.
So I'll mention a couple of quick things on this. Look, without a doubt, you have to have a strategy, and you're answering several questions, but primarily you're answering the question: how can data help us meet our business goals? What we're trying to achieve. What role does it play? Is it defensive, as I spoke about earlier, defensive data, offensive, or is it both? Is it a byproduct or is it the central, driver, the raw material for our success? Largely now we'll see that latter being the actual case. And so what I wanted to do actually is give you a specific example for a pharmaceutical company, a company called Merck, which is, I think, very familiar to many people. Merck is a 130-year-old, highly successful pharma company, medicine companies they call it today. Current sales around $64 billion, global company, $64 billion. So not trivial. And they realized, they had to modernize and get ready for the the new markets, and again, the new economy, the new dynamics of the 21st century. And that required, for an older type business, a more traditional business, a significant large scale digital transformation. Um, and so, adding digital to their operations, moving from processes and workflows to digital, across the board. Massive investment, very big decision at the highest level. But as they started to think about how we're going to do this, and by the way, how will this digital transformation set us up for AI success? Because let's not lose sight of that theme. What they realized very quickly is that their data infrastructure was not in good shape. They had data quality issues. They had fragmentation across the enterprise, the global enterprise, a lot of silos, different standards. So they weren't where they needed to be, and so what do they do? How do they go from that state? And by the way, despite all that, in the older economy in the 20th century, they were having success, but that was not going to help them now in the 2020s and beyond. Their data strategy to enable good data, to enable the digital transformation, was to implement a enterprise data governance framework, basically a formal data governance plan or strategy for the organization. And I'll just summarize a couple of parts here. It's an awesome case study because it can help all of us in so many ways. But making data ownership, a priority, which we've spoken about, and this notion of stewardship of data, where there are people, whether it's full-time staff or part of somebody's job, where they help to broker success around data. So anything from ensuring quality to working on looking for integration opportunities, being sort of a business analyst between different systems and departments and divisions, creating a data catalog so people can find data, right? I laugh because you could have the best data and the best systems, but if you can't find the data you need to be successful, it's all for nothing. Ensuring standardization around things like data definitions and your metadata, and then implementing tools. You're not going to get away with manual processes here. You got to look out to the marketplace, and there's plenty of good enterprise, really high quality tools today to support all of this. Some superb tools, and so those were some of the highlights. And so the question is, well, what happened? What were the outcomes when they did this over time? Well, the first thing was data quality improved by 70%. And I don't know exactly right now how you define that, but metrics are really key here. Having metrics so you know that you're winning. For the first time, the enablement of real-time analytics, so they could start to support their research and development. For pharmaceutical company, that's really important. Their work with and including the work with customers. And I guess the last point here, well, two last quick points, is because we talk about the defensive nature of data in support of all of this, which is things like regulations and compliance requirements, as well as privacy. So, today, if you're not compliant, you can get big fines. You can even get to big trouble, right? But the last point I wanted to make to ensure that I continue to be on topic with our theme today is they were able to then begin for the first time, tackle AI projects and accelerate their AI initiatives, which were being held back by a very poor data context. So a lot to be learned there, and you can see how, with a strategy, like your question asks, with leadership support, with the right investment, you can get your data to a good place and have it be the engine of success to align with your business strategy.
Okay, so it's practical, it's real, it's not too hard. Richard, just in terms of your clients, where are they starting? Is it people? Is it technology? Is it tools? The defining the use cases, having an idea of where the end state that is? What are you seeing?
But unfortunately, a lot of the companies that we interact with have jumped onto the hype of AI solutions and are very much exploring use cases within AI. That's the position that a lot of company that we interact with are kind of at the moment. And so they're moving forward with um, their AI strategies without kind of a governed data structure or a data foundation layer, or certainly a solid one. Now, some of the feedback is, well, for certain things, it's okay, and I can kind of get away with it because I'm not too fussed about the end result being as accurate. With other areas, we're seeing a lot of failures. I think, to Jonathan's point, and the reason for that is the trust in data. So, to I was speaking to a company just a couple of months ago where they had success was we have our marketing team. We're using AI to create marketing strategies, and it's based on a loose data set which has relatively no governance, and the access of data is fairly ungoverned. But what that allowed the LLMs to kind of produce was something that was creative. It was sometimes hallucinating, and actually, those hallucinations allowed the marketing team to kind of go, oh, well, actually, it's okay. But the value of that output was just something that LLMs were almost accelerating the process, but not necessarily gaining any advantage over data. Where they have failed, though, on the flip side, is anything else. And they actually were also in kind of that kind of medical area, although on the manufacturing side. And although they have a lot of AI use cases, they can't action on those because the outputs are not trusted. So it's this typical thing where, we see within enterprise structures of an analytical report going to the finance team, and the first thing that the CFO does is pull up Excel and does his own calculations. Exactly the same thing will be happening with AI solutions today with the majority of businesses is an output is done and somebody goes, yeah, but I don't really trust what it did. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to go through each stage and almost second guess things. So that's where the majority of people are at today is they have not invested in that area. And if I can offer some advice is data is really important. It needs to be a foundation. It needs to be part of the AI strategy. However, be aware that businesses are investing in the AI strategy. So tie any investments or any goals for AI, in your data foundation into your AI strategy. So it's almost for this to be a success, start here. And certainly those that are, I've spoken to recently, that is the path that they are now following is it's a necessary part.
Excellent. Thank you, Richard. And I think you've probably led us into the next section, which is really around the challenges. And I'm just doing a quick time check here, but maybe back to you, Jonathan. What are you seeing as the most frequent sort of challenges for people to get started, to get things moving in this space?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you asked this question. You would think what we're saying here sounds like, hey, just do it. It's easy, no problem. Why isn't everybody doing it? As you said, it's not massively difficult, but it does require several very important areas of attention. Let's put it that way. And it's a serious topic. I'll give you just sort of a list here, a brief list of areas to think about. It's certainly not exhaustive, as is none of what we've been saying this evening. The first thing is, data in organizations so many times lives in silos. So, never mind AI and the big things, but, for basic sort of research or, doing a query, sometimes it can be hard to get to know where data is. We talked about that before. And then when you know where it is, to get the right access, making sure you have the right permission. So, figuring out how you can make your data more accessible, determining whether you need a data lake, a place to basically accumulate lots and lots of data sets, or something more formal like a data warehouse, which puts quality data sets into a structured manner. That those are maybe investments you need to make, or perhaps pay more attention to your existing data warehouse and data lake. There's also some cost that organizations don't realize with preparing your data, getting your data to a place where it is of high quality and ready for the big AI initiatives, the big products you're going to build, the workflows, the agents that you intend to do. The next item I would say is making sure you have the right skills. Right. So are the skills existing staff? Like, do you have a data science team, or do you train new staff, or I should say, do you train different people in your organization to have the data skills? Do you hire, the talent you need, or do you use a provider? Actually, what might happen is you have a mix of all of those things, right? You have a small team in house, and perhaps you are expanding, through the data literacy comment earlier, data skills across the enterprise, and then you're bringing in one or more partners, collaborators, external firms who have the talent to help with that. We talked about, just data quality in general needs to be addressed. And I think the last point I would make here, I've been in the tech industry and in leadership positions for about 30 years, actually, a little over 30 years. And I've always been interested in project success. Why do some projects succeed? Why do they fail? And there's some great research on this, never mind my own anecdotal experiences. One of the key reasons that differentiates between a project that succeeds and fails is leadership support, is that you have a sponsor at a very senior level who is passionate and with the project from start to finish, really invested in it to see its success. When that happens, when you have a very strong leader, in this case, a chief data officer, or even a chief operating officer who says, we need to make data a success. We need to have a successful data governance framework, etc. The research on this is clear. You see more likelihood of success in that and projects in general when you have that type of leadership support. So those are just a small subset of but important ones of the kinds of challenges that organizations will face as they embark on this journey, or are facing as they progress along the journey right now.
Excellent. We'll move us on to the next topic, I guess, in terms of lessons learned and pitfalls to avoid. Maybe Richard, if you'd like to go first, just to give a bit of a thought around the clients that you're working with and the ones that are successful. I'm keen to hear from you about, I guess, where to start, how to start. Do you go big? Do you go small? If you've got the right exec support, how do you get things moving in this space?
Yeah, I've kind of touched on it a little bit already. If you had a perfect scenario, you'd start with a solid data foundation, you'd have your tools, you'd have your organizational structure, but then you'd separately have kind of an AI innovation team. We at Bluestonex, we love innovation, we love crazy and creative solutions for companies. But that comes with a challenge as well, a whole separate topic, I suppose, of this whole innovation journey. What is it that you're trying to achieve? What value is it you're driving? That's a perfect scenario, I suppose. The reality is most companies, as I mentioned earlier, have started with AI is absolutely critical to us and we must move forward at pace. And where's we've got CEOs and CEOs screaming and board members screaming, where is the AI solution in what we produce or in our business? And the reality is that the data teams are then having to almost play catch up with no budgets to do so, a team structure that's segmented. So I think in terms of lessons learned, it's just structuring that conversation and feedback to the business that this is important. And that is a really difficult conversation at the moment, is to get that message across. So um, I've I've certainly seen a lot of companies fail in this area because I mean I say this a lot, but data is not sexy, in for a lot of reasons. However, as we've heard earlier from myself and from Jonathan, everybody wants to be a data-led business going forward. So it's kind of two sides of the same coin, really. So we have to jump when those things are mentioned that, yeah, you want to be a data-led business, and yet we don't have the funding, the support, the backing within the organization. So it's this culture part. It certainly needs to come supported from the top down and be reflected. Even just this week, I've been speaking to another organization, Change of Leadership, and it's not supported, but it's also not fully supported in terms of their journey. The business and the data teams really have a great strategy to move forward, and yet their use case is struggling to kind of get over the line. So yeah, it's a real challenge, I suppose.
It
When it
sounds
goes wrong in this space, it can go really wrong, and you can have bad outputs of your solutions and bad data sets, and companies either relying on the wrong set of data or, and we've done a number of webinars on what happens when the wrong data kind of goes out there. We've got circumstances of cheese deliveries being on the back of a truck that never leaves, all sorts. So, when it goes wrong, it can go really wrong in some of these cases and cost us a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely. Jonathan, any comments from yourself there around, I guess, the pitfalls to avoid?
Yeah, no, those were some really good, strong ones there from Richard. Maybe I'll just add one or two more on top of that. Yeah, you kind of alluded to it a bit, Adam, in your question. Is there's no harm in starting small. That is true. You don't have to go sort of big day one, especially if you historically haven't put enough focus on this area. So, identify the important data sets that will be leading to your AI initiatives or your small, language models, and begin modestly. See some results, and then show those to leadership. That's another thing that I always recommend, and I see in successful organizations is, if as we're saying that this isn't particularly sexy, and it sometimes it requires leadership to kind of have an enormous amount of trust in their teams, is show results. Show as you kind of do what you said you were going to do. When you made the proposal to implement, let's say, an enterprise data governance framework. 2 months later, come back and say, we've started, and here are the positive results, right? So start small, do that, gain confidence. Leadership will then say, oh, that's, we like what we see, keep doing it. Maybe they'll, write another check and say, here's a bit more money, and you can gain confidence over time and build it. I think collaboration is really key. One thing I haven't shared this evening is this idea of data GovOps, coming from the DevOps world. If anybody is watching this and they are familiar with how we created efficiencies in faster software deployment over the last decade, it was more tools, more automation, but much greater collaboration. So deeper collaboration between the business team, the analysts, and the technologists and the software developers. And that's been very successful. We saw a sort of successor to that, something called data ops, again, which was about how can people who use data in their jobs work with the custodians of data on the back end to get results. And now the next kind of more contemporary implementation that is data GovOps, which is again automation, continuous improvement, and continuous integration, and tools. And the last one was collaboration. So people working more closely together. So look to do that. And by the way, that's healthy when businesses collaborate, when departments collaborate, divisions, different units are almost forced to collaborate because they're, you want the benefits that can only amount to very good things.
And definitely, I think that orchestration, right, between different parts of an organization, in if you take it in its worst case, people will complete whatever data it is to do their specific job in finance, or their specific job in HR, or their specific job in supply chain or planning or purchasing. But if you actually take an end-to-end approach and sort of foster that collaboration, then you get greater value as the data sets are more aligned or more capable. So I guess we are coming towards the end of our time together, but just any last takeaways or thoughts there from our side? Maybe Richard, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I can do. I just thank you to everybody that's joined. We have got a question that I'd maybe like to try and answer from one of the audience members as well. But ultimately, I think ideally trying to bridge this gap of the business goals and where the business is trying to go as an overall objective will certainly support any plans or strategies that you're trying to push forward in regards to data or even AI. AI is getting the attention, so as I mentioned earlier, I would recommend to try and tie any data asks or wants into those strategies. That seems to be a slightly more successful approach. But you cannot get away from kind of the importance that data serves within kind of enterprises. It is a commodity, and sometimes it's about thinking about things a little bit differently. I think traditionally companies have thought about data as efficiency. So if I have people manually doing that process today and I have 20 people doing it across the world, maybe I can just centralize a team and maybe stick a tool in and then all my problems will solve. But then the use case and the business case for that just goes from having 20 people down to 5 people. And depending where that labor is coming from, especially with global organizations, the cost differentiator isn't that much. And I see a lot of the time people just going, well, I'm not going to save any money, so, I'm not going to do it. And really, where I've seen some huge success is where companies have thought differently about what is the missed opportunities. So it's not about that just small saving of efficiency. It's about, well, actually, in order to do my business goal, in order to achieve this quickly or correctly first time, to grow revenue even. I've seen companies grow significant revenues because they have this great data structure. They're able to capitalize on the efficiency of the data, but also the access to real-time information. And to the question, which is about any tips on fast, effective, and low-cost actions that can support data asset identification, registry, and low data literature culture. Long sentence there, but a great question. And if I understand it correctly, one of the ways that companies are kind of doing that is if you have the right kind of tool set or the right setup within your data teams, the input of that information is coming from different team members that have access to the right information, maybe into a centralized governance model. But rather than just having your traditional data, you then have that metadata there so that you can do that identification of the different assets. You can label it, you can categorize it. And therefore, when you're accessing it from the LLMs, you already have those tags in place so that you can tell your LLMs, well, that means this, and or this is from this data source. And then you can kind of get a lot more value out of your information. But that relies on that process and that foundational layer being in place. So hopefully I answered your question there from the audience member. But yeah, as I said, sorry, maybe a long takeaway there, but thank you.
No, that's great. Well, we did have a question and answer section, but I think at the end, but I think we are running a little short on time. So thank you for elaborating on that. And maybe Jonathan, I'll any closing remarks or takeaways that you would advise us and our attendees of?
Yeah, the question is beyond what I've already said, I suppose. Maybe as a summary thought, I think data governance to me is at the heart of success here, not as a replacement or as the only thing, but as the area that is least mature and most neglected in many enterprises. Good data governance sets you up for very good, or at least gives you the best advantages for AI success. I can't say that it's going to give you AI success because your AI projects have their own strategy and own risks and context. But having that baseline in very good shape, having the data sets where you want them. So that means, policies, standards, and fundamentally, let me just kind of bring it to all the way home. Make sure you got good quality data available to you, because without that, this ain't going to work.
Excellent. Great insights. Well, I just looked at the clock and I can't believe the time has gone so quickly. It's been a really engaging conversation. We have, I guess, an opportunity. Richard will be normally residing in the UK and in the sunny Scotland. Will be enjoying this view in Australia in a few weeks' time as he visits us. The Ausforming team. We have a few events that week. There's the Mastering SAP conference and a few other activities. So if any of what you've seen or heard today is of interest, please reach out to us. All the attendees and everyone who's registered will receive a recording of this presentation, and also some output in terms of materials that may be of use in the future. So I would like to just have a quick check with Sahil. Are there any questions that we haven't covered that were on the chat there, Sahil? Are we good?
We have covered, Adam. We have covered, and we will have further follow-up sessions with each of the attendees to discuss things more.
Fantastic. And I can see Jonathan's also shared some details around the books. Sahil and I are great devotees of Jonathan's input, and always the way he gets information across to us is or in his presentations, in his reading and his writing is exceptional. So we really want to thank you, Jonathan, for taking the time to help us unpack these topics today, and also to Richard, great insights from clients internationally, and we as Ausforming, Sahil and I, look forward to expanding, or at least Australia is geographically some distance from the rest of the world, but we aim from a technology point of view and from a thought leadership point of view to be operating in very close collaboration with all of you. So again, thank you for joining us. The session has been recorded, and a copy will be shared with you. And if there's any questions or any other information you'd like to discuss with Sahil and I, please reach out, and also the rest of the panel. Look forward to hopefully connecting with you all shortly.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you guys
for everybody's participation.
Thank you.